Hi, I'm Dr. John Townsend. Ever had a difficult conversation that went south? Well, yeah, probably 95% of the conversations that we have go south because sometimes we don't have the skills or we don't know what to do. But we have to have these difficult conversations because life is life, and this can be at work with people that we are colleagues with. It can be in our family. It can be with your kids or your grandkids. It can be with your parents or your grandparents. It can be, somebody you're dating. It can be with your spouse. Relationships being what there are, we want to love people and get along and hang out with them, but we also, sometimes things happen and somebody's, doesn't do what they say they'll do, or they hurt our feelings, or they judge us, or they've got, maybe they talk about themselves all the time and they don't, care about us or whatever. But there are these things, sometimes small, sometimes medium, sometimes large, that get in the way, and they're not going to go away. And so you have to have a conversation, which might be difficult, but at the same time can bring closeness and respect and love and lots of good things. Henry Cloud and I wrote a book called How to Have That Difficult Conversation That You've Been Avoiding. The longest title I think we've ever had for any book, but it kind of is descriptive. I'm going to give you the series of. I'll summarize everything in 8 steps, and this is going to be in order, in a sequence, to take a person through. So for some people, it might only need 2 steps. Maybe somebody you've known, if you've got a really healthy marriage, you've been together 30 years, you might not have to go through all 8. But I'm giving you the kind of the Wikipedia version so you can use it that way. The very first step is to convey that you are for them. In other words, everybody, when they're hearing bad news, they get kind of tight and they're, oh my gosh, their stomach's hurting, they're going to get judged or whatever. So the very first thing when you sit down with them, by the way, this has got to be a called, dedicated meeting. It's kind of not like while you're both playing, rugby, or while you're both, eating a great lunch and looking at a movie, because it takes some concentration. So you say, can I talk to you at 3 o'clock Tuesday about something, and I want to improve things between us, or there's an issue. You prep them. So they're nervous by this time because, what are they going to say to me? So you just say, well, first off, I really care about you, and I care about us, and I want us to be better. That's why I'm doing this. So that kind of brings that anxiety down a little bit so they can listen. The second thing is to be specific and say, here's the problem. When I say specific, it's good to you got to do some homework beforehand about this conversation. You got to have, I always have 3 examples with dates and times and situations in your back pocket if you need them, because some people are going to go, well, I never did that. Give me an example. And then if you go, well, it's just because it's the way I feel, they'll go, well, I feel this way too. 3 examples. You might need them, you might not need them. But good 3 examples. Just say, the last time 3 times when we were in public and you kind of shamed me, or I asked you to get the milk and you forgot, and that's 3 in a row, and I'm kind of worried about that. So that's the third. And the third thing is to own your own part. As the Bible says, take the beam out of your eye and say, I probably contributed in this way. Now, don't make anything up, but most of the time there's some way that we had some contribution. For example, I wasn't clear with you about what I need and want, and that's on me because you didn't know. Or it might be I didn't speak up because, I don't know, I'm conflict avoidant, so you didn't know because I didn't peep up, and I should have. Or, well, I trigger you and you trigger me, but kind of own your part. First off, it's good for us to own our part, but secondly, it kind of levels the moral playing field so the person doesn't feel like here's the judging parent here and here's the screw up here, and, because kids that feel like they've got the judging parent are always pushing back against that. You're just saying, look, I don't care about all that. Moral playing field is equal. I got problems too. I just want a relationship, and it helps them to ease up. The next thing is to tell them what you want. So I would like that when we're in public, you say supportive things to me, or ask me about a joke that you're going to make about my dress or my tie or whatever, kind of ahead of time, because I do have some vulnerable spots. But I want this from you. Now, I do this a lot with corporations and companies and family-owned businesses and families. And sometimes it's about business, and it could be, here's what I'd like. I'd like for you to get your reports in on time, and for the next 60 days, I want you to get your reports in half an hour ahead of time, or show up to the meeting half an hour ahead of time. Well, that's just too far ahead of time. I know, but I'm just trying to repair something. You've been late on stuff the last 3 months pretty regularly, so we need to kind of refresh your habits here, specifically what you want. Again, a homework issue, so make sure that you're telling them what you want. To say something really vague, like, well, be different, get a new personality. What do they do with that? So be specific. The next one is to ask them their part. Everybody has got a side in it. I've just told you a bunch of stuff, Sam or Sally. What's your side of this? There's two benefits to that. One is they may tell you something that you might need to know, like, well, our kid's been sick and the doctors are kind of scratching their heads. It's a scary time for us. I'm sorry I've been showing up late for work, and I really have. I think you'd rather know that if you're a leader, for example, in business. You'd say, okay, didn't know that. How can we help? Where's the insurance? Blah, blah, blah. There's information that may be the reasons for that behavior. So ask them their part. And the other thing is also, it just helps, again, to them not to feel like they're the one down person. The next one is to basically go into, what kind of things that they feel like they could be doing and any excuses they have, but also you want to make sure it doesn't deal with diversion and go into a rabbit trail. So, if they say, well, the freeway's really bad, well, the freeway's been bad a long time. You got to get up earlier. But help them not to go down the rabbit trail of diversion where they end up saying, well, Mom, my big problem in life is I have a dysfunctional mother. Well, okay, that's part of it, but you can't put it all on that. So don't let them go into excuse land. Sooner or later, if they just go on excuse after excuse after excuse, you might have to say, okay, I get it. Those are hard things, but I'm going to give you the 5 magic words for this conversation. Let me get back to. Let me get back to your lateness or your attitude or your behavior. Let me get back to it. It's sort of like you're the traffic cop saying, I'll listen to this. I'm writing notes, but I called the meeting. You called the meeting. You structured the meeting. It's your meeting. So make sure you don't let yourself get hijacked into a bunch of rabbit trails. Then sometimes you might need to give them consequences. There's things in the business world where HR steps in and says, there's demotions and promotions and there's discipline acts and this sort of thing. And then in the world, there's like putting kids in timeout. And in marriage, it's sort of like, I can't really be close to you emotionally until you stop being mean to me. So you don't always have to put consequences in because some people don't need consequences. They're just tender and they just go, I didn't want to hurt you. I won't do it again. You can trust them. Some people don't listen to your words and your hurt. Only thing that'll change them is consequences. Why do you think there's Henry Cloud and I wrote bazillion boundary books? Because of the consequences aspect. Then button up the conversation by saying, I know this is a hard talk, but I'm for you. I'm still for you. I'm for us, and I hope this works out. So they feel and they know, and they really can't deny that you're doing this from a caring place. And the last one is somewhere between 2 and 24 hours later. There's a little range there. Go back to them again. Check in them. Text them, Zoom them, call them, visit with them, and just say, just want to check in. How are you doing after that conversation? Because a lot of times they've been marinating about how you picked on them, and you're not fair and all this, and they may say things like that. And you just assure them, say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean any of those things you're feeling. I didn't want to hurt you, and I'm sorry if it hurt. I really am for you. That's the third 4. Number 1, 7, and 8 are about 4. We need reassurance when we're hearing hard things. And that's how the system works. Hope it's helpful.